Okay, three times the charm. I've recorded this video twice already. First time it was 48 minutes long. A little bit too long, and I realized my microphone was in the wrong spot. Um, it was um, it was too close to my mouth, and I was popping my P's, they call it. That means when the air from your mouth hits the microphone, it causes wind sound and sounds like something's popping, and I did 48 minutes and played it back and realized it was unbearable to listen to. So I have moved the microphone away to the side so it will not catch the air. If it sounds a little bit low, that's why. Hopefully we'll be getting a new headset and microphone sometime soon. So anyway, welcome to the video that introduces Project Bento. Project Bento started months and months ago. And I signed a non-disclosure agreement with Linden Labs. Linden Labs decided to do things a little bit differently this time. They invited a small handful of residents to be involved in a project that were picked specifically because they had the type of background and skills that would be very useful for the project, specific abilities and skills. And so I was picked because I made MayaStar, and I had a lot of experience with MayaStar, making MayaStar, so I had a lot of experience with the avatar skeleton and with the avatar skeleton XML file and the avatar LAD XML file. Those were the two files that you really need to be very, very familiar with when you're making something like MayaStar or Avastar. There was an Avastar representative, Matrice, who was also invited, along with a bunch of other content creators, a number of the larger or bigger, well-known mesh avatar makers, such as Slink, the Mesh Project, not Maitreya, 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 I believe, or was it Beleza? I think it was Maitreya. Can't remember. Along with other content creators, such as Flea and Toady, who make incredible fantasy avatars, just incredible. And a number of moles, a bunch of other Lindens, and a number of clothing designers as well. And so I'm going to pause the video here real quick. Oh, and God, I had to pause it because anyway. So Tyr Rosenberg, okay, she's going to kill me. It's not Rosenberg, it's Rosenblum. I'm sorry, Tyr. So anyway, and a bunch of others, and I know I'm forgetting because as the group went on, more and more people were invited to give feedback. And so, like Shadeen from Slink was in there, like I said, Plush and the Mesh Project and others. And like I said, other people, Tyr came on like couple of months into the project, and other people were slowly added. But yeah, like Coyote Linden, Aura, Silent Mole, and Dan Linden, and others. I mean, I know I'm forgetting a whole bunch. Veer and Oz, and Troy Linden. Anyway, so and a number of other people. Anyway, so we started off with a fairly small group, and they told us what the aim of the project was to increase the avatar's ability, and they were mainly thinking about adding bones to the avatar itself. And we threw you know how you say you throw an idea against the wall and you see if it sticks? Well, we threw every idea possible against the wall to see if it would stick. And believe me, I came up with some really wild ideas. And to Linden's credits, and that every idea was respected and thoroughly examined, and a lot of my ideas just would not work, or would not be possible in the small frame that we had to get this project out. And so, but it was really wonderful. Everybody was encouraged to come up with any idea, no matter how outlandish, at least in the very beginning, to try to figure out, hey, maybe come up with some incredible ideas that hadn't been thought of before. And definitely there were some, and everybody did contribute with some wonderful ideas and feedback. And so anyway, so that was the beginning of it. And that's how you could kind of know Project Bento and how it started, and kind of why Linden Lab did it the way they did it. Like I say, they're trying something new, and it actually worked out, I think, really, really well. And so, like I said, I was able to bring up any idea, and we would discuss it. Sometimes we would do experiments and see if they would actually work and how well they worked. And those content creators would often, such as Tier and Toady and Flea and others, Silent, would often take the different test avatar skeletons that we would come up with and make content, we would make mesh for it and rig to it and animations, and we would see if it would work. There'll probably be a very famous video of all of us sitting around with tentacles coming out of out around our abdomens, all the way around, and them waving around like crazy. That was a test to see if we had 100 joints, if we could actually break the viewer and see how much lag it would produce. Yeah, we certainly did push the limit. Okay, so that's a little bit of background on Project Bento. Let's see, and like I said, I came up with a lot of ideas, and a lot of them were really crazy. Some of them were rather good, but just weren't practical. Some of them I think would have maybe been a better choice, but see, I don't know. See, that I know the skeleton really well, and I know the avatar lad pretty well, and the avatar skeleton file really well, but I don't know everything that goes on in the viewer. I don't know that code. I know how to make mouse scripts, that type of coding, but I'm not, a super professional coder by any means. Matrice of Avastar is he's a professional coder. He is a professional coder, and top notch. Outstrips me way, way. He's like a graduate student or graduate with a master's degree in coding. I'm like a high schooler who knows a little bit of coding. Okay, so that's the difference in abilities between Matrice of Avastar and myself of Mayastar, and we work together. I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to really get to know Matrice and Avastar people very much better. We're not competitors. We sell to two different customer bases. We have similar products, but we sell to two completely different sets of customers. So there's no animosity between Mayastar, which is only me, and Avastar. In fact, we were able to sit down and talk things over, interesting things that we discovered in the Avatar LAD and in the Avatar skeleton files, and we're able to work together to figure out some things of why some things weren't 100% accurate in either program. We were able to sit down and working together figure out, oh yeah, that's right, because I would figure out something, they would figure out something that I hadn't figured out, or I would have figured out something that they hadn't realized, and so it was really good. It was really wonderful. I'm incredibly happy and gratified with my experience in Project Bento. Okay, so on to the skeleton and avatar itself. So anyway, so I was going to say, so while I may have thought that I might have had some ideas that might have been worked out better, I respect the decisions that Oz and Veer and Troy and the other Lindens made for this particular skeleton. They know things about the viewer that I don't know. And so while I think some of my ideas might have been better, I have to leave it up to them to make the final decision. And I think all their decisions that they made were good decisions. It's not that guy had a good an idea that was better and that their final decision was crummy. No, 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 no. All their decisions were good and based on good sound reasonings, and they would always, you know, they always gave the reasons why they made the decisions that they made. And so they were all based on good, solid logic and on information that they knew about the viewer that I didn't know about, you know, so they were good, solid reasons why they came up with the decisions that they came up with. So, I just wanted to make sure to let you know that was clear. Okay. So, the new skeleton, as you see, you can see we have wings and we have a tail and we have something that looks like a groin, which we do. And we have a bunch of, and you can kind of see hand bones from this view, and you can see a bunch of face bones. So let's start off with the top. Okay, so the top of the skeleton. Okay, we have a lot of new bones. There's actually not as many new bones as appears. Now this Maya skeleton has extra bones in it called effectors. You can see it says M face forehead left effector. That bone is actually not in the skeleton of the avatar in Second Life. Okay, these effector bones are only there in Maya for animation purposes, to animate for BVH files. It appears that BVH files can only be exported out of Maya if there's a little extra bone at the end of all the bones, you know, the bones that you want to animate. If that little bone wasn't there, the actual bone that you'd want to animate, this bone, when you went to animate it, that information would not be exported out. So if we deleted this, this is what it actually is in Second Life, that bone right there. Okay, so you will not rig to these effector bones. If you do, it won't upload to Second Life, or right now the beta test grid, the Audity, it will not upload to Audity. Okay, those bones are just there for animating purposes, for creating BVH files. Okay, now they're placed in such a position where, and this was Matrice, this basic face layout was a face layout that I did. Okay, and these effector bone placements basically come to the surface of where the avatar mesh would be. Unfortunately, I don't have a mesh rigged to this skeleton yet. But Matrice took my bone positions and he placed the, see, Matrice of Avastar is on Blender. Blender bones work slightly different than Maya bones. Okay, Blender has a beginning point and an end point to every bone. And so to make the avatar skeleton a bit more friendly for Blender users, we added an endpoint to all the bones. Okay, and that's so that Blender users will more easily be able to bring in the skeleton and to use the skeleton. But we decided to sort of kill two birds with one stone, since we need these effectors on the bones for Maya users to be able to make BVH files. We just made them do dual role. Okay, so that they're dual role. So if you were to go in the Avastar skeleton file, you would see the endpoints positions, and those positions are the positions of the effectors. But they're the endpoints that Blender users use to be able to have the bones correctly. Unfortunately, we didn't have any 3D Max users or any other program, so we weren't able to come up with anything to help them. I think they're going to be able to use just the bones as we have without any problems. But because I was in the group and Matrice from Avastar was in the group, we were able to try to make it as usable for both Maya users and Blender users. You know, that's one of the great things that was. And if Linden's hadn't invited people with that specific knowledge, you know, it wouldn't have gotten in there. Or we might have been in a large group and our ideas and suggestions would have been lost in the crowd. You know, so I think this new approach that Linden Lab has done with Project Bento worked out extremely well. Okay, so we're looking at the face. Now, I can give you a little background that the first face layout and tests were done by Shadeen Monroe of Slink. And she had created the first skeleton with face bones. And I brought that skeleton into Maya, and I looked at it and I examined it, and I came out with my own little layout. Because I was able to come out with my own little layout because by the time I was ready to work on the face and on the skeleton, by the time we got to that point, it had already been like a couple of months since Shadeen had made her initial test with face bones just to see if it would actually work. And so then we got, we were able to figure out by that point, several months later, how many bones we would be able to have for the face. And so I was able to look at her face bones and kind of imagine, well, how would I do it? You know, kind of look at the pros and the cons of the way she laid out the face and see if I could improve on it with the number of face bones that we were allowed. So the face bones layout is my layout with feedback from everybody in the group. You know, with feedback from everybody in the group, and then I went back and made changes to the bones. So anyway, so the effectors, they all sit on the very surface of where the default avatar's head would be. You know, where the surface of the skin would be. And you'll notice, like, we have the eyebrows. We have 3 eyebrow bones, okay? And you'll notice that the eyebrow bones are actually set quite deep. You know, the effectors are on the surface, while the bone itself is deeper inside the skeleton. And the reason for that is the pivot point of the bone when it rotates is where the bone location is. So in order so that the vertices that are weighted to that bone move smoothly across what would be the skull of the avatar, we needed to have it set deeper into the face. I had figured that out after doing my first initial rig, or my first initial bone layout, and playing with it and getting feedback from other people in the group. So you'll notice here how the effector, the curve of the effector, you know, that's the curve that the vertices will take. It's not perfect, but you're not going to raise your eyebrows way up to here, or you're not going to make them go way down there. You know, the facial bone animations are pretty subtle, you know. So you can see it follows that curve. It's a smoother, more shallower curve path that you can see the effector is taking when you rotate, because all rotations in Second Life animations are all rotations. They're not, the only bone that actually moves is the M-pelvis bone. That will actually move in 3D space. Everything else, all the other bones just rotate. They do nothing but rotate. Okay, for animations. Okay, so you can see if the bone was out here where the effector was, you know, you can't, you know, that it's just going to, the arc of, here, let me focus in on it. The arc that the vertices would move would be much sharper. You know, they'd be much, much sharper. And, you know, they would move like that. Really tiny, really small arc. And that does not follow the path anywhere near like the avatars. The vertices would not move as if they were moving along the skull. You know, luckily the human head is pretty much like an egg shape. You know, we're very fortunate that that the human skull is shaped the way it is overall, generally speaking. Okay, so I'm just going to put that back to 0. Okay, so we have 3 bones for the eyebrows, and we have a bone for the oh, that's an ear bone. That's the effector for the ear bone, and that's the ear bone itself. We have a bone for the eyelids, one for the upper, one for the lower eyelid. We even have new eye bone eyes for the eyes. Okay, we have the default eye bone right there, and then we have a new eye bone there. The reason for that is we decided, Veer realized that if people wanted to make animations for the eyes, they wouldn't be able to, because the default skeleton eyes are connected to the viewer, and there's a little program in the viewer that makes your eyes follow your mouse, so that it would override any animations you make for the eyes. And they were not going to try to change that. That would be going into the viewer code, and that would be a lot of work. So it's just easier to add new eye bones that are separate from the avatar's eyes, so that you could rig mesh to those eye bones. The new eye bones, and animators could make new animations so the eyes would follow wherever the animator wanted it to go. So if you're making a facial expression where you're smiling and crossing your eyes to look at your nose, you could do that, or if you were making an animation of a piano player and you wanted the piano player to look like the eyes are looking down at the hands, or reading the notes on the page, you could do that. So those are the eye bones, and they're the only bones where the endpoints are way outside the avatar skull. I think Matrice did that so that it'd be easier to see where the eyes were actually looking at when you were animating. And all these bones, oh, there goes an ambulance outside my window. Now all these bones you can move. You can upload bones in different positions. You just in the mesh upload window, you just click include joint positions. So all these you're not tied in to having these be where they're at. So if you're making an anamorphic avatar, or what's commonly called a furry avatar, you'll be able to move the jawbone, which is here, and move it out. You'll be able to do that with no problem. And I placed the jawbone, I went to the side and I figured out where would the hinge be on the avatar if there was a skull inside, where would that hinge bone be? And that's why I placed it there, so that when you animated it, it opened and closed. Now, what's parented to the jawbone are the lower lips, left and right lower lip, and there is a tongue bone. There's a base tongue bone, and then there's another tongue bone, a tongue bone tip, so you can animate the tip of the tongue bone and the base of the tongue bone. And of course there's an effector on the end of them. Okay, so that's that. Let's see, we have 2 cheek bones for the cheeks, so when you smile you can make your eyes, the cheeks kind of move, the upper cheeks, like go over the cheekbones. We have 3 nose bones or joints. They're joints in Second Life. I mean, not Second Life, in Maya. Everywhere, joints in Maya, everywhere else, everybody calls them bones. But bones and joints are interchangeable. Same thing. You have a left nostril and a right nostril, and then you have a center nostril, and they're all animatable. So if you were doing a furry character and you wanted to make the nose wiggle, you could do it that way. Okay. Like I said, we have ear bones. I think that's it for the head. Okay. And so, like I said, Shadeen Monroe of Slink was the first person to do bones for the face, and I just took her work and added on to it. Even though it's my bone layout and I put the bones all there, I was looking at hers and seeing what I liked and what I didn't like, what worked, what didn't work, and then came up with my version. And then everybody tried it out, or some people tried it out and gave me feedback, and we made changes to it. So it was definitely a group effort. Let's see. Okay, the next thing, if we keep going down, are the hands. The hands are all matrice. There's 3 joints per finger. You could say 4 fingers and a thumb, or you could say 5 fingers, however you want to put it. But for all the fingers and thumb, there's 3 joints each, just like the human hand. And although these extra joints on the end, again, are effectors for animation purposes only. Matrice did an awesome job. The wing layout are Matrice did the wing layout, and he had a stroke of brilliance right near the end. Originally, the wings were just right parallel with the arms. And Matrice, in his experiments, realized, I don't know if he got feedback from Flea or Toady or Silent, and there's so many others in the group that I would love to mention. I just can't remember everybody's name right now. I feel so bad. Was that if the wings are parallel to the arm, when you do your initial rigging, a lot of times, your mesh that is supposed to be just for the arm gets influenced by the wing, or vertices of the wing get influenced by the arm joints when you do your initial rigging. And Matrice had a stroke of brilliance and said, let's just make it 45 degrees back. That way, when you do your initial rigging, it won't interfere when you're doing it. So you'll get a much cleaner initial rig than had you had them sitting out straight to the side. And so that was, I think that was an awesome idea. Okay, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 joints for the wings. For the wing itself, the arm of the wing, and then again a little effector joint on the end. Like I said, you don't rig to it. Okay, here is something about the wings that I'm very proud of because it was my idea. I will take sole ownership of this idea, and of course watch it turn out to be absolutely horrible in practice. Right now everything's theory. That's why we have a testing period. Okay, originally the wings were just parented directly into the M-chest bone. But we had a problem where when you switch from a female avatar to a male avatar is having such a bigger chest and such a deeper, the vertices of the back mesh come out farther away from the avatar skeleton because men are bigger. And what would happen is that the wings wouldn't move. And so the wings joints would sort of get buried inside the chest cavity of the male avatar. And so I thought, well, let's just, instead of parenting the wings into the M-chest bone, let's parent it into another wing bone that's a root, and then have that bone rigged into the M-chest bone. That way we could take the first root and we could move it backwards and maybe up a little bit for male avatars, just like that. Make it a lot easier. I know you can't see my screen changing, but it's changing because I have a nice little program. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Called Efflux. It's for when the sun goes down. It makes your screen a little redder, so it helps you fall asleep better at night than looking at a white screen late in the evening. So I'm just going to disable it for an hour, even though it's well past sunset. It's 5:40 p.m. Okay, so I highly recommend it. It does really help because if you're looking at a white screen late at night, it actually messes up your body clock. It makes you think that it's light outside, and so it makes it harder for you to fall asleep at night. And so that Efflux, if you look it up on Google, is a free little program, and it just makes your screen redder at night to simulate sunset. So it actually helps you fall asleep. Anyway. Okay, so, and then I thought, I realized, hey, if we add just a second root, You know, so initially I said just you have this root going in to the M chest bone. You know, then we'd be able just to move the avatar, the wings back and up really easy in the avatar lad file, and that will make it a lot easier. And then I realized later that if we added more roots, I thought, well, let's add another root. And that other root allowed us to move, say we wanted to move the wings to the top of the avatar's head for, say, like rabbit ears. Of course, because you can move these, you can move these bones anywhere you want. You know, so the rabbit ears don't have to be this big, you know, because you can upload different joint positions. That way, when the avatar bent, say the chest leaned forward, that way when the avatar leaned forward, the wings would go along for the ride. But Veer noticed that, well, if you rotate the head, though, let me get that. If you rotate the head, even if you do rotate this even more than what the chest bone is, it starts to get out of position. Okay? Especially if you rotate not only the neck, but if you rotate the head, there comes to a point where you cannot compensate. See how it starts to get out of position? It's much higher. You can't compensate for that difference, and you are only limited to basically moving the wings anywhere in the spine. You know, you're limited. And so at the last minute, the last week or so, a couple of days ago, I realized if we add just a third joint, if we added a third joint, we could actually move the wings anywhere. Okay, you can make the wings look like they're coming out of the hand, the end of the tail, anywhere on the tail, on a foot. You don't have to use them for wings. You can use them as for a little pet bird, you know, or a little two-legged creature. Or you can use the wings for, you know, you could have them coming out of the middle of your abdomen for a four-legged, you know, a four-legged avatar. You know, so you can use these wing bones for anything. You can use them for wings, you can use them for arms, you can use them to animate a skirt. You know, it's up to your imagination. How you would do it is you first move wing root 2. You have to move it away from the avatar. So how far you put it away from the avatar, if you're making pets, will determine how far away your little pet can move away from the avatar. And because it has 3 joints and not 2, these pets, or whoops, why is that doing that? These pets can come on, I just want to snap to there. No. Okay. So anyway, you can move the wings anywhere you want, and make them different limbs. You know, you know, they're 4 legs. Now you have 4 legs. You know, instead of 2. And so as the avatar moves and bends and rotates, you compensate. The animators out there will compensate by, as the avatar moves, they'll be able to rotate these 2 joints to compensate so that this joint here always stays in the same relative position. You know, like say to the pelvis bone. You know, they'll be able to compensate for the movement of the avatar so that it appears that those limbs are parented to that particular joint, say such as the M pelvis, or to a hand, or to a foot. You know, it's up to you, your imagination. It could be the top of the head. It could be, if you want to do it, to the chin of the avatar. and have an animated beard flowing in the wind. Say you want to have a long beard and you want to make the beard look like it's actually moving when your avatar turns its head or the wind is blowing or something like that. I mean, really, it's up to you. If you want to do a little creature, like I said, the length of this arm, think of it as an elbow, will determine where that creature can go in the avatar. That will determine where, scale it down. There's a smaller bird, and then the animator can make the bird, using rotations only, can make the bird appear to start to fly. Oh, shoot, I wanted to get that. Okay, it's to start to fly. So the way you make it fly is the animator would start to move that, and then would take that and start to rotate that. And while they're both rotating at the same time, in the animation, you could make it look like the bird is flying away from the avatar. And you can make it look like it's flying anywhere. It's only limited to the length of these two arms. Okay, so you'll be able to make little pets, butterflies, birds, bees, whatever, or you can make a two-legged little animal running around. I can make an ostrich running around, or any sort of two-legged animal running around. You might even be able to figure out a way of folding these wings onto each other to make a four-legged animal. There might be a way to do that. It'll just, like I said, be limited to your creativity and ways you can solve them. So the wings are I think are extremely going to be useful for a bunch of different things. I'm just getting everything back to where it was. Okay, so those are the wings, and that's the wings. The tail, I'm not sure who came out with the layout for the tail. It was probably Matrice, but maybe it was somebody else, I don't know, who came out with this tail layout where the joints get closer as they get to the end, which makes sense. And again, it has a little bone effector on the end. And then you have, of course, a groin joint. And we decided to put the groin joint, and it is animatable, and it will be tied into the sliders for the purse slider. So, because when fitted mesh was originally created, we kind of forgot about the groin joint, the purse slider for men, to make their groins bigger or smaller. I kind of forgot about that in fitted mesh, so we added a groin joint. And like I said, it is animatable, and I'm sure people will have a lot of fun with that particular ability. Let's see. That's basically it. The skeleton is different colors simply because I haven't cleaned it up yet. And so yeah, so that's basically it for the skeleton. As you can see, there's a lot of possibilities here. I hope my microphone shifted a little bit. I hope I wasn't popping my peas too much. There is just a ton of things. And like I said, all of these bones, you can't reparent the bone, but you can reposition the bones. So if you want really big wings, you can have huge wings. If you want really small wings, you can have small wings. If you have an avatar, say you were doing the Incredible Hulk, big huge head, you could you'll need to reposition the bones of the face to match that particular head shape. Same with the hands. If you want to make alien hands that only have 3 fingers, you can just move the bones, or don't rig to certain bones. But you can move them. So if you had something with super, super long fingers, you could, like I said, so you'll be able to move these bones around and just upload those joint positions. And yeah, so, and I think this really shows that Linden Lab is committed to Second Life, that there is no plan in Second Life to close down Second Life for in favor of Project Sansar. I think this really shows that Linden Labs is serious about its commitment to Second Life and continuing Second Life. The way I think about it, and let me say this up front, I am not in I am not in Project Sansar. I don't even know if there is a Project Sansar closed beta group of testers who are under NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. I don't even know if that exists or if it exists yet, So I don't know, so I don't want anything I say to be construed that, oh, she has some insider information. No, I do not. But I will say my opinion. And so my opinion is, the way I look at it is, Linden Labs you can think of it as a gaming company. And a lot of gaming companies, such as EA Sports, puts out different games, even though they may be similar. They may be first-person shooter games, but they may put out two different first-person shooter games. And what distinguishes one game from another game is the rules that game is played by, and if the two games had the same exact rules, if they worked exactly the same, they would be basically the same game. So why have two games? It would just confuse people, and people would be like, well, it does, why would you buy two different games if they were exactly the same, if they had the same, if they were governed by the same rules? So Sansar, even though it's going to be most likely very similar to Second Life in that it'll have avatars, it'll be a 3D environment, people will be able to sell things, people will be able to create things, hopefully, in world, and it will have its own economy and all that kind of stuff, similar to Second Life. It is not, and should not, in my opinion, be run by the same rules. If it's just going to be Second Life with better graphics, that would be a mistake, in my opinion. It has to have some basic rules that are fundamentally different and function differently than Second Life, in my opinion. Otherwise, it's because you want Sansar to attract a different customer base. You want to attract, a different customer base who are looking for a different experience than what they experienced in Second Life. And hopefully that they'll be able to do it where they'll have a better retention rate. Everybody knows that Second Life has a horrible retention rate, that there's a lot of people out there who try Second Life, but who end up not staying in Second Life. So you have to appeal to a different audience. You have to have it try to change things so that the customer retention rate will be higher. It's kind of like if you made Sansar, in my opinion, the same as Second Life, just with better graphics, you're not going to really draw that many more new people into it. And that those people who leave Second Life, if half the people in Second Life leave to go to Project Sansar, can Sansar or Second Life survive with half as many people in it? I don't think so. So you want Sansar to be its own unique experience, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is if it functions under different rules. It has to be a new world that works under new rules, so that, because new rules means new opportunities, and it also means if they do it differently, that you'll get a higher retention rate and you'll draw in people who maybe didn't stay in Second Life because Second Life didn't appeal to them. Now, a lot of people who love Second Life, like myself, will probably also love Sansar and will be in both, and you'll be happy to be in both. But yeah, it's my hope and wish. Some of the things I wish they do differently is full permission. I hope they do it differently. I don't want them to change anything in Second Life the way they do full permission. It works great. A lot of people like it the way it works in Second Life, but I see a lot of drawbacks to full permission in how it functions in Second Life, and I hope they can do it differently. I still want full permission in Project Sansar. I just hope it works under different rules and different conditions so that the drawbacks I see in Second Life don't happen in Sansar. Briefly, full permission, I see the biggest problem with full permission is undercutting. People buying full permission items and undercutting each other to where you see a downward spiral to the point where the full permission items are going for next to nothing, because there's no real bottom price that somebody can sell something that they bought with full permission. You could say licensing agreements. I'd hate to tell you this, but you cannot set a bottom price with a licensing agreement. It's actually illegal. It is illegal for a retailer or wholesaler, which would be the full perm seller, to set a bottom price for their item. It is actually illegal. That's called price fixing. They cannot do it. And since there's no real world manufacturer cost of selling unlimited copies of something, there's no real bottom price that something could hit in Second Life other than 0. And so I've seen this happen many, many times where I've been in Second Life so long where I've seen the full perm market doesn't get what they used to get because everything spirals downward as people who buy full perm buy it and undercut each other in prices. And then so the value of something, say shoes, goes down. And then the full perm dealers have no choice but to start lowering their prices. Because people simply can't get what they used to get for shoes. So, as an example. So full perm dealers have no choice but to lower their prices, which then more people can afford the full perm, more people start undercutting each other, and it's just this downward spiral. I hope they fix that in Sansar. And the way they can fix it in Sansar is that the full perm dealers get, no matter who sells the item, gets the same amount of money for every copy that's sold as the original thing. So they get their commission on everything that's sold. That will keep the prices from dropping to the bare bottom. It means full perm items will still sell fairly cheap because you got to leave enough room for the next person who buys a full perm item to be able to mark it up to a decent price so they can make a profit. This is the way IMVU works, is that the full perm dealer, if they sell a pair of full perm shoes for 300 lindens, doesn't matter who buys the shoes and resells the shoes, they get 300 for every pair that's sold. So that the people who buy the full perm mark it up to, say, 400 linden. And they're encouraged to add their own creativity to those shoes, so that they add new textures to the shoes, they add their own mesh to the shoes, such as laces or bows or ribbons or straps or whatever it is. They add to the creativity of the full perm item so that they've added value to the full perm item, and therefore they can get more money for those shoes than just the 300. So they can mark it up to 300 or 500 linden. And so that every pair of shoes they sell, they make 300 linden. If they're selling it for 600 linden, they make 300 linden, and the full perm dealer makes 300 linden. That is one way to keep this from happening, and I hope Sansar uses something similar. And there are texture artists out there who will take a full perm item, such as a shoe or a house or something, and they'll make these incredible textures. So they may get the shoe for 300 linden, but they may do such an awesome job with textures that they can sell the shoe for 1,000 linden. And so they make 700 linden, and the mesh creator, the designer of that shoe, gets 300 linden. You see what I mean? It is so much more fair and equitable in that it depends on how much creativity you put into those shoes or into that item. So it just encourages creativity. I see so much happening in the full perm market where people will buy a full perm item and do hardly anything to the full perm. Maybe because they're not that good yet at making textures or this or that, or maybe because they just don't want to put that much effort into it. But unfortunately, that leads into undercutting as well because of the way the system is. And it's a race to the bottom instead of having it to where the system is set up, the rules by which it works by is set up so that it encourages creativity and adding value. So that's what I mean by I believe Sansar needs to work by different rules. One, it will attract different types of people than what attracts Second Life, but also because it can help avoid some of the pitfalls that I see that are in Second Life. I have no problem with full perm, and I do not think that full perm should be changed at this point in Second Life. Second Life should be Second Life, and it runs by its rules. But I can, like I said, I can just see the pitfalls that full perm has in Second Life, and that I hope we avoid in Sansar. But Second Life will always be here. So those are people who love the way full perm works in Second Life will always have Second Life as it is for Second Life. You know, that they're not going to be losing anything if Sansar works with different rules. Okay, well, that's enough of my soapbox. If you've actually listened to the whole thing, it's now 50 minutes long. You know, so I hope, you know, that's, you know, maybe I'll put a link into it. If you want to hear Kathy preach or get on her soapbox, like I said, I have a lot of full perm friends. I've sold a little bit of full perm. You know, I have no problem with people who sell full perm. I don't think they're evil or anything like that. Like I say, I just see there's some pitfalls into the way Second Life does full perm, and I hope we can avoid them in Sansar. And that's all I'm saying. You know, I have no problem with businesses and boxes or anything like that. It just depends on how the rules are set up. You know, you know. So anyway, so enough preaching. And I will hope to see everybody in there in the next video. I will be making more videos on how to use the new skeleton for animating and rigging too and what have you. And it will be in MayaStar as soon as I can. It'll probably be an update 4.5 that will have the new skeleton, and as the beta testing ends, it will probably be a 4.6. So, alrighty, well, I will talk to you later, as if I'm talking to you on the phone. I will hopefully see everybody in the next video. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.